Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Governing Board. My name is Claire Muirhead. I'm in the Water Supply Planning Bureau with the district, and I'm here to give an update on the Central Florida Water Initiative. I'm going to give a brief update on the initiative, and then after I'm completed, Stephen James, the Director of Office of Water Policy at DEP, will be discussing the FDEP rulemaking. Brian Armstrong, then, with the Executive Director of Southwest Florida Water Management District, will discuss successes in CFWI. And then Mark Elsner, Bureau Chief of Water Supply at the South Florida Water Management District, will discuss district cost share funding and the work accomplished by the Data Monitoring and Investigation Sub-Team within CFWI. So with that, I'll start. As most of you probably know, the CFWI was created as a water supply planning effort to protect, conserve, develop, and restore Central Florida's water resources. The planning area includes 5 separate counties within Central Florida: Polk County, Osceola, Orange, Seminole, and then Southern Lake County. It's a unique collaborative process in that the stakeholders involved include the 3 largest water management districts, DEP, FDEX, and many other stakeholders, including public water supply utilities, business entities, industrial commercial entities, the environmental groups, the general public, and others. So it's quite unique within Florida. The reason we created the CFWI is due to the region's challenges. And I know most folks in the room are aware of the challenges within this region due to population growth. In Central Florida, there are increased pressures on natural resources. In fact, the Regional Water Supply Plan, which was approved by all 3 water management districts in 2015, determined that at least 250 million gallons per day of projected water must be met through water conservation and alternative sources within the region. I've listed a little chronology over the past 2 years just to give you an idea of things that have happened since the plan in 2015 was approved. So that, as I said, the 3 water management districts approved the plan in November. In March of 2016, our district governing board passed a resolution directing district staff to implement the plan. In April of 2016, the stakeholders created what we call the 2020 Guiding Principles, and this gives stakeholders direction regarding the work that's going to be completed on the 2020 plan. In July 2016, the Senate Bill 552 passes, which codifies the CFWI rule, and then currently, we're all working towards completion of the 2020 plan. For the 2020 plan, what we've done is created a new organizational structure. At the top, we have what we call a steering committee. This is the only body within the structure that's a sunshine committee. Under that, we have the Management Oversight Committee. And actually, I wanted to mention that Stephen James at DEP is actually the lead of the steering committee. Under that, we have the Management Oversight Committee, and then reporting to this Management Oversight Committee are what we call the 5 technical teams. The technical teams are made up of a large number of different stakeholders, as you can see on this table. I have the agencies listed on the left, but there are also many other stakeholders involved in the process. As I said, it's very collaborative. There are over 200 folks working on the CFWI process. This is a photo of the staff just at St. John's River Water Management District that work on CFWI. Most of them have their regular work duties, and then they're working on CFWI issues sort of part-time. Just wanted to give you an idea of and how many folks. There's over 40 folks at St. John's working on CFWI. And now I want to go into the team updates briefly. The first one is the Regional Water Supply Plan team. This is a very important team in that they are coordinating the 2020 effort. They keep the master schedule and make sure the other technical teams are on target and on schedule. They've had a number of really important accomplishments this year, including the fact that all projection methodologies have been approved by stakeholders. This was a major deal. It's the first time we will have consistent methods for all 3 water management districts within the CFWI. The Water Resource Assessment Team works on items such as developing a groundwater model for the next plan. They're currently working on updating the model that was used on the last plan in order to improve the accuracy of the impact analysis that will be done. They also are working on locating monitoring locations. We feel that there are some gaps within the area, so we're kind of filling in the gaps with monitoring locations, and they're also building what I think will be very helpful database, which will include all of the data collected and analyzed by this team and will be accessible to all parties, including the general public eventually. Next team up is the regulatory team. This team works to establish rules and regulations within CFWI, particularly associated with water use permitting. And Stephen James will go into this further as part of his discussion. The conservation team, they work to, there's a goal of 37 million gallons per day that was laid out in the 2015 plan. So the team is working on, at first, calculating, okay, how much conservation have we saved so far? They've calculated, based on surveys they've sent out, that 4.9 million gallons per day of savings have been realized by public supply and ag since 2010 to present day. They've also completed an implementation strategy, which was required in the plan, and an implementation strategy outline, which was approved by the steering committee. And this strategy includes, as I've listed here, it is going to include a list of BMPs, a trend analysis, and barriers and solutions to enhance water conservation. And then lastly, the communications team plays a major role in CFWI. They publish monthly press releases. And then they recently created a water conservation video, which has been posted to our CFWI website, district websites, and then it's also been distributed to stakeholders, including public water supply utilities, for their use. Anyone who's interested in this video can please contact me and we can make that video available to you. Okay, I briefly wanted to go over some of the projects that have been proposed and implemented for CFWI. You can find this map in the Solution Strategies document, which is located on our website. And what it's showing here is 16 of the regional AWS projects that are proposed for the CFWI area. They're made up of several different sources, including, as you see, reclaimed surface water and lower Florida and groundwater. And actually, 3 of these regional projects were approved by all 3 water management districts for funding consideration this past year. 1 is a stormwater project, and 2 are lower Florida and aquifer projects. And then lastly, I've included a slide regarding specifically St. Johns River Water Management District cost share programs within CFWI from 2014 to 2018. I've listed the project costs at approximately $74 million. St. Johns River funding cost share amount is $28 million. And these projects vary in nature. The one on the left is an irrigation retrofit project, and the one on the right is in Seminole County, and that project is a stormwater project, which will eventually be used for irrigation. Okay, next up will be Stephen James with the Office of Water Policy at DEP. Stephen.
Great. Well, hi everyone. How you doing? Good to see you. Chairman Nicholas. I know you just recognized some of the folks in the room on the CFWI steering committee, Craig Barn, Brian, and Mr. Wheeler, and all of the coordinated efforts are greatly appreciated by the department. I was asked to just come and speak a little bit about the rulemaking effort. As she mentioned in some of the teams, we have a reg team that kind of identified some of the issues that were of rulemaking interest. But we, as she mentioned, also have just initiated a formal traditional rulemaking process kind of to include the participatory efforts of all the stakeholders. Many of those are in the room as well. As you can see, Senate Bill 552, many call it the water bill, the comprehensive water bill. We like to call it the law now. If you're just looking for statutes, that's where it is. And for those that were in Tallahassee during this time, there were probably no less than 47 iterations of this bill over the course of several sessions. They finally got it out. You see 2016-1. It was the first bill passed in 2016. It's an amended 373-0465. It actually created that section of law to adopt all the CFWI, the legislative intent, the collaborative process, the efforts to protect not only the resources but prevent harm. So that was all codified in 373-0465. We were required by that law to initiate rulemaking by December of 2016, and we did that. And finally, you see that when we do adopt these rules, the districts won't have to adopt separate rules. Those will just be implemented without adoption. So what did the statute say? So it says that we have to do the following. We have to have a single uniform definition of harmful to the water resources. A lot of this comes from the CUPCON efforts, and I know you were instrumental in those efforts to determine what the definition of harmful to the resources might be. And from your efforts, Ann, I could tell you, it's water quality impacts, the movement of a contamination plume, for example, impacts from dewatering discharges, harmful saline intrusion or upconing, hydrologic alterations to the natural system, including wetlands, and then an overall otherwise provision in there. A single method for calculating residential per capita water use, and we talk a lot about per capita in this instance, and we defined what it means for perhaps a multifamily use, some treatment losses, what it means to be finished water, and all that. DEP actually issued a guidance document on that a couple of years ago, I believe. A single process for permit reviews. So 3 districts obviously coming in the middle. We want all the permit reviews to be the same, to be consistent, and we're working on that effort right now. We have also consistency with IRPs and CUPs. We want to make sure that you don't issue an allocation of water before they actually get a project permitted, so one's done before the other. A single consistent process as appropriate, and that qualifier is interesting. I'll talk about that in a sec. A single consistent process as appropriate to set MFLs and reservations. We want to make sure there's some flexibility in there to recognize that different water bodies have different impacts, different uses. We want to make sure that we can have some differences there. A goal of residential per capita water use and an annual conservation goal. These goals are probably the most commented on in the rulemaking process, and some of the stakeholders are here. We're working through a lot of those comments now. Obviously, with an annual conservation goal, you have certain users, user groups that they may do one big conservation facility upgrade, for example. How do we annualize that throughout the term, whether they're included in a permit, things like that. The statute also required variance, and I read that to you. The uniform rules must include existing recovery strategies within the CFWI and may grant variance to the uniform rules if there are unique circumstances. So we're working on that variance process. And the existing recovery strategies, those are essentially Dover, Planet City, and the SWACA. We want to make sure that those stay in the law that were adopted before 2016. So where we come through, I said December 30th, a notice of rule development. And we've had a bunch of workshops. Started off with a webinar that was very well attended, I might say. Workshops in March, Kissimmee, April, August. We had some subsequent meetings scheduled, but Mother Nature, obviously, and some of the comments that we're still receiving, they're getting very detailed at this point. So we're working through some of those, and we are trying to get a November workshop planned. It hasn't been scheduled as of today. And these are some of the things that we've worked through in the workshops. The aforementioned enumerated list, the methods, the conditions of issuance, PERP consistency, uniform demand for public supply, goals, recovery strategies, variances in March. So then, again, in April and August, working through these issues, the annual conservation goal, first draft. And again, that's a topic that there's a lot of debate on that, uniform demand and CII, uniform demand in ag, working through some of those, how their efficiencies and, what type of crops they rotate and rainfall and that sort of thing. Public supply and CII second draft and variances there. And these are the topics that we're still yet to work on. Lowest quality water source, as you see, we have a first draft that we're still working on there. And that's essentially the rulemaking process to date. Just want to take a couple minutes to thank everybody again for their cooperation and participation. We're very appreciative.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Brian Armstrong, Executive Director of the Southwest Florida Water Management District, more commonly referred to as SWFMD or the BEST District. You'll hear those together a lot. When Ann asked me to come talk about successes, I want to talk about Polk County. And as you can see in this picture, Polk County is, for the majority, CFWI for us. We have a little portion of Lake County just north of it. But for us, CFWI is Polk County, and they, as they often tell me, have the privilege of being split by two water management districts with two different sets of rules. So there's us, and there's South Florida. Polk County also has the privilege of having the majority of it within the Southern Water Use Caution Area. So when the CFWI rules will be split, they will now have the SWCA rules and CFWI that they will have to follow. Now, SWCA, it was a long time ago that it was identified that that portion of the county had already reached sustainable limits. There were already rules put in place and efforts to reduce groundwater withdrawals, likely the same effort that's ongoing now within the Central Florida Water Initiative. And what we've had within our district is a success of developing regional solutions by bringing all the utilities together in regional entities, like Tampa Bay Water, like the Peace River Water Supply Authority, like the Withlacoochee Water Supply Authority. And the district played a part in developing and helped get those entities off the ground. We have been very successful. We spent years going through the water wars in the Tampa Bay area. No offense to the attorneys, but we spent millions of dollars on attorneys' fees. Nothing was built. No water was produced. And then Tallahassee stepped in and said, well, if you don't fix it, we will. So we decided to get together and come up with the solution, which was called the Partnership Agreement. That agreement, in short, created alternative water supplies that reduced their pumping from an average of 158 million gallons per day down to 90 from the central well fields. So it was a great success. So what we wanted to do is take that same approach into Polk County and help them form a cooperative, the CARE. And that was resolution 15.07. And it went through a couple steps. We said, the first step in that resolution said, we're going to put $10 million out there to show you that we support the development of alternative water supplies and also the development of your water cooperative. And the next year, we'll put another $10 million out there if you come together and develop project plans to identify at least 30 million gallons per day of projects. The next step, we said we would put another $10 million in the pot if you come together and form a cooperative. And lastly, this year, we put the last $10 million in the pot in 2018 for the governing board because it said you have to come to us for approval of at least 30 million gallons per day worth of projects. If you come to us and ask for cooperative funding for that, there will be $40 million set aside for you to start this effort to begin the cooperative and to move forward with developing alternative water supplies. So they reached a lot of milestones. First, they did form the cooperative. And the goal of the cooperative, we wanted to make sure that we got the biggest piece of the pie out of this, the demand pie. And one of the requirements in the cooperative was, look out to 2035 for all your municipalities And we want at least 70% of the demand met by those members in the cooperative. And we also have to have at least 5 of you. So we wanted to make sure that we were putting our funds towards a beneficial group of folks that that represented the majority of the demand and the biggest users. Well, there's 17 municipalities in Polk County. And I often refer to it, it wasn't like herding cats, it was like herding rabid cats. They did an amazing effort, and the credit goes towards those commissioners, those city council people who put down all the past history and came together and decided, you know what, this was best for the resource and the best way to move forward. We asked for 5 members, we got 15. Only 2 municipalities within Polk County did not choose to join the cooperative. And as you can see, they're very small. We not only got 70% of the projected demand in 2035, but we have 99%. We approved the interlocal agreement again just this year, and we provided the last $10 million as we agreed to in the resolution. What's happened so far? We took DEP's money, and their first project that they got off the ground were multiple conservation projects funded through DEP. They came to us for approval of their 3 projects, which includes the southeast wellfield, the West Polk near Lakeland, deep wellfield. In addition to the Peace Creek integrated water supply, was looking at some type of storage, recharge, and credit for groundwater recharge. We're in the feasibility stage. There's 2 phases. The first phase is approved by our governing board for $23 million, of which the district will cost share half of that. It includes the wells, the testing, the feasibility, and also a third-party review of the design. The future, it's a big tab, but it's not something that we haven't seen in the past. For phase 2, the combination of all 3 projects are $617 million, and we anticipate the district will fund half of that over the years. We're not going to build it all tomorrow. We're trying to meet the demand out in 2035 and probably over the next 50 years with these 3 projects. So we'll wait for the results from the first phase of the project, and then we'll move forward from there. That's all I got. Thanks.
Brian, which 2 municipalities?
Frostproof and Highlands Park. Very small.
Yeah, really. Okay.
Like their business is like 1,000 gallons a day or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, good afternoon now. I'm Mark Elser, I'm the Bureau Chief of the Water Bureau for the largest water management district. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of some of the work we have going on in the South Florida Water Management District. First, our cooperative funding program. In South Florida, our cost share programs, for stormwater, alternative water supply, and conservation, we've combined into what we call the cooperative funding program. This program is open to all users, utilities, golf courses, homeowner associations, agriculture. And for FY 17-18, we had $9 million in funding. Our governing board wanted us to direct this money towards construction only with the limited funds we have. We wanted to have a return on that investment. And in September of 2016, they chose 71 projects to fund, and 10 of those are located in the Central Florida Water Initiative. One of our other guidelines is that we'll fund up to 50% of the project or a maximum amount. And for this period, it was $500,000 for AWS, $250,000 for stormwater management, and $100,000 for conservation. Those 10 projects in Central Florida Water Initiative, there were 5 alternative water supply projects identified, and actually there's 4 in the purple, 1 stormwater project, and then 5 water conservation projects. The 4 alternative water supply projects will create 6 million gallons a day of new water capacity, 23 million gallons of treated brackish water transmission capacity, and I'll get into that in a minute, and then 1 million gallons of additional reclaimed water transmission capacity. Those 5 water conservation projects will save an estimated 1.2 million gallons of MGD a year. 433 million gallons a year, 1.2 million gallons a day. Just to show geographically where these are located at, in the urban areas, as you would expect. We did not get any applications from the agricultural community for this round. So I'm going to focus on Orange County Utility Project, which is up there. And so this is the Lower Florida Booster Pump Station. And what this is like a Polk County Cooperative. Utilities in largest utilities in Central Florida here formed a cooperative called the Water Cooperative of Central Florida. And that includes St. Cloud, Toho, Orange County, Polk County, and Reedy Creek. And their charge is to look for cost-effective and sustainable water supplies for that Central Florida area. But anyhow, in the bottom right-hand corner, Toho was able to acquire a permit for a brackish water well field called the Cypress Lakes well field. 37 million gallons a day, raw water. And instead of each of these entities up here developing their own alternative water supply, given that the traditional Florida aquifer, upper Florida is pretty much maximized, they work together and how could they do this as efficiently and effective as possible. And they came up with a process called the water wheeling study that we funded in 2014. And what this did is look at how can they distribute this water from Cypress Lakes to these other entities. Most utilities are connected, but the interconnections are to extremities and very small. And we're looking to move fairly large volumes of water between the different utilities. So they came up with a transmission improvement project between each of the participating entities to move this water between them. So the Lower Florida Booster Pump Station is the first of those projects, utilities that we funded. The utilities have been implementing these projects on their own. So what this consists of is two 4,000 gallon pumps, some water main, and it's, like I said, it's going to create 23 million gallons a day of alternative transmission capacity between those 5 entities. We provided $500,000 in funding, and the total cost is about $2.3 million. I just wanted to briefly talk about some of our well drilling and implementation of the data management and investigations teamwork, DMIT. Clara talked about it earlier, but a lot of that is filling the gaps. Data drives our groundwater models, which we're using to estimate amount of water available, and it's just as good as the data that's in there. And this DMIT team had identified several data needs in this area, and we've budgeted $3.1 million over the next year to 2 years to support our drilling program. The first one is Deseret Lake Myrtle, and that's up in this area. It's right adjacent to St. John's Water Management District, and a large need for data in that area, and I'll go through each of these. Another well we call OSF 53, and then a well in Intercession City. And I know you guys are thinking, Intercession City, if I've ever been there, if you Google it, it's an unincorporated community 5 miles west of Kissimmee and has about 1,500 people in it. Learn something new every day. Sorry for the alphabet soup, but in this area, there's 3 primary aquifers we talk about. A superficial aquifer system that's probably 0 to 100 feet below land surface. The upper Florida, which is a traditional source in this area, is probably about 300 to 800 feet below ground surface. And then the lower Florida, which is about 1,200 to over 2,000 feet deep. And the lower Florida was identified as an alternative source in this area. But with this well drilling program and the information we're collecting, we're looking at how these aquifers interrelate, and if you pump the lower Florida, does it impact the 2 aquifers above it? Just quickly, our Deseret Lake Myrtle, we have the trifecta well set going on here. We're doing a superficial well. We've already completed an upper Florida aquifer well, and then we're going to be drilling a lower Florida aquifer well down to 2,500 feet. We just got the bids in, and it'll be going to our governing board on Thursday, and hopefully we'll be able to get started in the next couple months. We have a boatload of testing and logging. And what this is doing is identifying the geology underneath this site, the hydraulic characteristics and communication between the different aquifers, and it will involve a pump test, and we can see the effect of that pumping on the various aquifer levels. We have another well, OSF 53. There happens to be an existing Upper Florida well already there. For some reason, it was never instrumented with monitoring equipment. We're going to go ahead and do that, but we're also drilling a well next to it and a continuous core down to the top of the upper or lower Florida aquifer, down to wherever we hit it at, 1,500 feet, to look at the geology at this site, and then those will both become monitoring wells at that site. We have issued the contract, and we're looking to begin, actually they should be started and take 3 months to go ahead and drill that. The Intercession City, there's actually a existing well there that we're going to instrument. And then another big part of this that Claire mentioned is the wetland sites. Very important part of the landscape up here, and want to make sure that that's protected from harm as part of this. So the 3 districts are actually collaborating very closely on this and looking at the different wetland sites in the 3 districts, and we'll be developing wetland transects as well as doing soil borings at multiple sites in this area. For a pretty large effort. We're supposed to be getting started, but with the high water levels, we have to wait for those to recede to get into some of these areas. And I'll end with a picture of this is a restored portion of the Kissimmee River. And if you notice in the previous slides, the Orlando area is the headwaters to this Kissimmee River. Very important.